This is what you should feel. You are what you should feel.
Okay, so this was a couple of years back. I think around March or April of 2019. I had recently moved into a new apartment, eager to start fresh. Everything seemed normal until one evening when I noticed something a little strange. As I walked past my bathroom mirror, I caught a glimpse of someone behind me, an exact copy of myself. My heart raced as I turned around, but there was no one there. Shaken and unsure what I had seen, I did a thorough search of the house, but could find no one. Not really wanting to be alone that night, I called a friend to come over. Over the next few days, the sightings continued. What I now know was a doppelganger, mimicked my every move, always lurking in the reflection but never visible in physical space. I checked around on Reddit, seeking similar stories so I can get advice on what to do with it. I found many different stories of encounters with mirror doppelgangers, warning me of the potential dangers. As the days passed, the doppelganger grew bolder. It started to deviate from my actions, expressing a sinister smile when I looked terrified. Desperate for answers, I searched folklore and discovered that seeing one's own doppelganger was an omen of impending tragedy. Terrified, I reached out to a local paranormal expert. They conducted a cleansing ritual in my apartment, and it seemed to work. The mirror's reflection returned to normal, but the memory of that chilling encounter still keeps me up at night. Two instances of seeing my sister's doppelganger. First one happened several years ago. We have double doors leading into our living room that you can look through from the kitchen. We were both young at this time and pranked each other, so when I noticed her hiding in a small corner right behind the double doors, I called her out. "I know you're there, S. I can see you." She didn't move. All I can see is black hair and a white t-shirt. The corner is in shadows. I called her out again. "You're not going to scare me. I see you." I walked over and slammed the door back to reveal her. No one there. I went to her bedroom to ask her if she'd been in the living room just now, and she wasn't even wearing a white t-shirt, and no way did she have time to move all the way into her room and change clothes. The second incident happened just a few months ago. Same sister, but she has a kid now. They were living with us at the time, and my nephew liked to sleep with our parents. Around midnight one night, I hear my mum up to let the dogs out to pee. I go to the kitchen, again with the doors, yes, and I'm digging some cookies while talking with my mum. On the other side of the house, I hear my sister's bedroom door open, and I'm facing the living room doors. So I see when she comes from the hallway leading to her room and crosses the living room towards our parents' room. Again, black hair and white t-shirt. I think to myself, what is she doing? And then quickly chalk it up to my nephew being in my parents' room, and she's going to go get him. Not even 30 seconds later, I hear the bathroom door slam on the complete opposite end of the house. My sister got up to use the bathroom, not get my nephew, and I confirmed it was her in the bathroom. No one else was in the house but my parents, my sister, my nephew, and me. But I know I saw someone clear as day walk through the living room that looked like my sister. To clarify, I was looking down when I heard the bedroom door. While I was looking down, my sister slipped by me to the bathroom. My mum saw her, and when I looked up, I saw the doppelganger. Then I heard the bathroom door. It happened very quickly. I asked my mum if that was my sister in the bathroom, and she said, yeah, which made me realize that I'd seen someone or something else walk by. I even went into my parents' room, but no one was there but my dad. My nephew was asleep in my sister's room. Have you ever seen a doppelganger before? I saw one once. Really, really scary. Alright, to start off, they say that once you see a doppelganger, the person whom the doppelganger imitates is doomed to either die very soon or come down with a serious accident. This is, of course, a myth, but I'm seriously freaked out now. Alright, to start off, I was lazily walking around Chinatown because I was bored and had nothing to do at home. Then, I noticed someone whom had the exact same clothes on as me, which was jeans, a long white sleeve, and black clothes. What was funny was that he had the same hairstyle as me, the short and spiky kind. I thought it was rather weird, so I tailed him. He seemed to know his way pretty well and stopped to browse some lady's clothing. I managed to get a glimpse of his face, and to my very surprise, he was me. He seemed to have noticed me because he looked at me straight in the eyes and grinned before disappearing into the crowds. I tried to follow him, but he simply vanished. I shrugged at that moment. Maybe I was just plain tired, which I was. So I decided to head back to Chinatown Point and catch a train home from there. As I was crossing the street, I saw him again. This time he was walking towards me, grinning all the while as I walked towards him. We stopped directly in front of each other. "What the hell?" I murmured, but he simply grinned and continued walking past me. I swore he brushed shoulders with me. He felt solid. That's when I realized the light was going red. I quickly dashed the remaining part of my journey across the road, when a speeding car brushed past me at a hair's breadth. I was so close that its side mirror managed to get a good swipe at my stomach. I just stood there, a little dumbfounded. The driver quickly got out of his car and apologized. I muttered it was nothing to worry about and just sat down. The driver wanted to make up for it, but I simply said I was fine. He left soon enough. I cautiously made the rest of my way back to my house. Only when I entered my room did I feel safe. I nearly could have gotten seriously injured or could have died. Just to let you know, it was a blazing 2 p.m. in the heat. Don't question why I was wearing long sleeves in that weather. I myself have no idea to my queer tastes. Question is, why did I see a doppelganger of myself? In my late 30s, I had a deep love for the ocean. I was a seasoned sailor, and my life revolved around the sea. It was during one of my solo voyages on a calm, moonlit night that I encountered something that, to this day, I still cannot explain. I was navigating my small sailboat through tranquil waters, the only source of light being the gentle glow of the moon and the stars. As I scanned the horizon, I saw a silhouette standing at the bow of my boat, perfectly mirroring my own stance. My heart raced as I stared at the figure. It was like looking at a reflection of myself, dressed in the same weathered sailor's gear that I wore. But there was something uncanny about the figure's expression. It was devoid of any emotion, and they made no move nor sound. I tried to call out, but my voice faltered. The silence of the open sea was punctuated only by the gentle lap of the waves against my boat. The figure remained unmoving, locked in an inexplicable connection with me. The minutes stretched into hours, and the figure showed no signs of life. It was as though they were an apparition a mysterious stowaway on my vessel. The thought of an extra presence aboard my boat in the middle of the vast ocean was both unsettling and surreal. As the night wore on, I continued to sail, unable to tear my gaze away from the silent figure. There were no conversations, no explanations, just a shared, eerie connection between us. When dawn finally broke, the figure began to fade, dissipating like a dream upon waking. I was left alone with the early morning light, questioning my sanity and the nature of this inexplicable encounter. Only as the memory lingered did I consider the strangeness of the incident, realizing that the figure I saw had been more than just an illusion. Only years later, remembering this incident, I started searching the web for some answers. I came across some subreddits about doppelgangers, and it seems to fit the description. What do you think? Was this a doppelganger? Or was I just seeing things? Hello everyone. This experience occurred in February of the year of telling this, so my memory is pretty clear in regards to detail. This past year was my senior year of college, and I was thrilled to be living with an alumni of my sorority who I am very close with. We'll call her Abby for clarity's sake. Abby and I weren't actually supposed to live in the apartment we ended up in. We were originally going to be living in a townhouse with 2 other girls, but they started so much drama a month before we were supposed to move in that we had to contact our landlord to find a different place within their company to live. Thankfully, we found a 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom basement apartment in a quiet area off campus. The first month was fine and without incident, but as the days went by, some strange things began to happen in the apartment. One morning, Abby woke up to a kitchen cabinet open. She wasn't that concerned about it and figured that I had just forgotten to shut it the night before. The next morning, a different cabinet was open, and once again, she shrugged it off. However, I went home one weekend, and she woke up to find every cabinet in the kitchen wide open and the sink running. Needless to say, Abby was scared and spent the night at her boyfriend's. 2 weeks later, we were watching TV and heard the bathroom door close. I tried to calm Abby down by saying that the fan we kept in the bathroom blew it closed. However, when we went to bed, we thought we could hear someone walking around in our living room. There's no way someone broke into our apartment and hid the whole day, only to come out at night and screw around with us. I was home the whole day, and Abby was home from 11 in the morning on. That incident took place shortly before Christmas break, and all was calm in the apartment until February. Abby had gone home for the weekend, and I was home alone, relaxing on the couch and doing homework. It was pretty late at night, so I turned on the TV for background noise and curled up on the couch to sleep. I woke up at 2:32 in the morning to see Abby walking through the front door, smiling but not saying anything. I blinked, still groggy from sleep, and asked if she was okay. She just looked at me and proceeded to take off her shoes and walk into the kitchen. Something about her didn't seem right. Like this girl looked like Abby and walked like her, but it wasn't her. I asked her again if she was okay, because it was so early in the morning for her to be coming home. Abby looked at me, smiled, and began washing something in the sink. Something inside me felt a profound sense of dread, like I was in actual danger and I needed to get away. As quickly as possible, I went to my room and locked my door. My roommate followed me because I heard someone tapping their finger against the door. Once, twice, 3 times, 4 times, 5 times. It just wouldn't stop. I didn't say another word because it felt like if I did acknowledge her, it gave her more strength. I know that doesn't make much sense, but that was my instinct. I curled up beneath my blankets and stared at my bedroom door, almost waiting for her to kick it in. My eyes felt heavy, and the tapping was almost like a metronome, enticing me to sleep. As I drifted back to sleep, the taps seemed to slow down to a trickle. The morning after, I was exhausted. It felt like I had taken 20 Advil PM to help me sleep, but I remembered everything that had happened last night. Cautiously, I left my room and saw that Abby's bed hadn't been disturbed or slept in. I went to the living room, and her shoes and purse weren't there. A cold feeling crept into my spine as I sent her a text asking if she had come home that night. She responded that no, she hadn't, and wouldn't be coming home for another 2 days. But I checked the sink, and the bowl that Abby had been washing had been cleaned and put away. I firmly believe that I was not dreaming or hallucinating, and I know this wasn't some elaborate prank by Abby, because she would never do something like that. I firmly believe something took the shape of Abby that night, and that its intentions were not good. There were a few other experiences in that apartment, but nothing so dramatic as what I went through that night. I'm sorry if this post isn't very exciting or dramatic, but I thought it was worth sharing to get everyone's thoughts on it. Was this a doppelganger? My life had always been simple and predictable. I was an average person in my early 40s, working a regular office job and leading a quiet suburban life. That all changed one day while running errands in my hometown. I was at the local grocery store, pushing my cart down the familiar aisles, when I caught a glimpse of someone who looked exactly like me. It was as though I had stumbled into a parallel universe. I stopped dead in my tracks, my heart racing. What I now know was a doppelganger, dressed in the same casual attire I was wearing, stood a few feet away, their gaze locked onto mine. There was no smile, no gesture, just a mirror image of myself. I blinked, hoping it was a figment of my imagination, but the doppelganger remained there, unmoving. Fear and confusion welled up within me. What did this silent twin want? Was this a sinister omen, or merely a bizarre coincidence? People around me continued shopping, oblivious to the uncanny spectacle before them. It was as though the world had frozen, and I was trapped in this surreal moment with my identical counterpart. I tried to step closer, but the doppelganger mirrored my movements exactly, maintaining a fixed distance. It was like facing a living reflection in a never-ending hall of mirrors. The minutes dragged on, but the silent standoff remained. I could feel the weight of the unspoken questions between us. Who were they? And why had our paths converged in this mundane grocery store? The doppelganger's blank expression offered no answers. We just continued staring at one another. Finally, a store employee, seemingly unbothered by our strange encounter, approached me, asking if I needed assistance. I turned for just a moment to address them, and when I looked back, the doppelganger was gone, vanished, as silently as they had appeared. The experience had left me with an overwhelming sense of disquiet and the unshakable feeling that my life, once ordinary and routine, had been touched by something inexplicable. I never really believed in the paranormal or supernatural up until this point, but now I don't know what I believe. I did some searching after this encounter and came across many such encounters as my own. But what do you think? It was the 7th month in 2011, and as most of us call it, the Hungry Ghost Festival. It is during this time when many weird things might happen to the unwary, and many refrain from going out at night. But in my story, staying at home did not prevent one of the freakiest things in my life to occur. I was only 15 then, and all middle school students, like myself, would be tired when we get home. It was a usual day, and the smell of incense in the air was really strong that day, considering all the offerings being burnt. After a cold shower, I went to my nicely air-conditioned room and took a nice, long nap. At around 6:45, I heard knocking and saw my father coming into my room. He told me that he was home, and if I was hungry, we could go grab some dinner at the coffee shop near my HDB. He then left me to continue sleeping. At roughly 7:30, 45 minutes after my father came in, he came in again, and once again, to tell me he just got home. I found it rather odd and asked him why did he come in again. He looked at me with a shocked and surprised face and asked me what I meant. I told him that this was his second time in my room, and he denied ever entering my room and that he just got back from work. We then checked the surveillance recordings on my front door to see if an intruder could have come in or left between the time when we left till the time we got back. But the only people leaving were my parents and myself. No one else intruded or left our flat. I was completely freaked out by this incident and did not know what it meant or why it happened. I guess one of the free spirits probably mistook me for his son, and it was so lonely that he actually asked me to have a meal with him. This was a year or two back. I was in my late 20s at the time, an office worker, living and working in the bustling heart of the city. It was during one of the train rides to work that something strange happened. The train was crowded as usual, with people engrossed in their own worlds, staring at their phone, reading their books, oblivious to the outside world. I was absorbed in a book, trying to make the most of my daily journey. But then, as I looked up to check the station, I saw my own reflection, or so I thought. A man who looked exactly like me stood at the opposite end of the train car. He had the same clothes, the same posture, and even the same book in his hands. It was as though I was staring into a mirror. The only difference was that he was facing away from me, gazing out of the window. I blinked, convinced it was a trick of the mind or some kind of coincidence. But as the train stopped at the next station and more passengers got off, I took a few steps towards the doppelganger. He turned around and our eyes met. There was no expression on his face, no acknowledgement of the uncanny resemblance. It was like he didn't recognize me, or perhaps he did and was as bewildered as I was. The train was too loud for us to speak, and yet there was a silent exchange of recognition and bewilderment. As the train journey continued, we both went back to our books, but I couldn't focus. I kept stealing glances at the silent doppelganger, and he did the same. It was like a dream, a surreal moment in an otherwise ordinary day. When my stop finally arrived, I gathered my belongings and made my way to the door, never taking my eyes off the doppelganger. He did the same, but neither of us made a move to leave the train. It was as though we were both anchored to the spot. The doors closed and the train started moving again, carrying me away from the doppelganger. I watched him recede into the distance, still holding my gaze. The last image I had was of his expressionless face, framed by the train window. I never saw him again, and I never got the chance to understand the meaning of that strange encounter. It left me with a sense of disquiet, and unsure of what I considered was real and what was not. This story happened to us way back when I was still 22 years old. I used to live with my boyfriend at the time, now hubby, in their old house at Villamor, Pasay City, Philippines. The house was just a bungalow type of house, but it was big enough to have 5 bedrooms, a living room, a dining room, and a restroom. It was just the 2 of us because his parents started to live in Pangasinan after my father-in-law retired as a soldier. So there was this particular day when we decided to buy some groceries since he already got his salary. We went out and did what we had to do, and finally went home at around 12 p.m. We were so tired from all the buying and carrying of the groceries, plus the hot weather outside. So when we got inside the house, I went straight to our bedroom to change my clothes. But because I was feeling so hot, I thought of heading back to the living room to cool off right in front of the wall fan. As I was walking past our bedroom door, I saw a glimpse of my husband entering the bedroom beside ours. I wasn't thinking of anything fearsome back then, but when he didn't turn on the light, I started wondering, what the hell was he doing inside that other room? The door was also closed, and he was not answering me as I was calling his name. And knowing my husband, he is not like that. So I finally decided to open the door, and I was so surprised to see the room empty. I walked backwards away from that room, and then saw my husband walking towards me from the kitchen. I asked him, "Where have you been?" And he told me that he was in the bathroom taking a dump. I told him what happened, and he said that there really is a doppelganger in the house. Up to now, after the whole renovation of the house, there are still some incidents like this happening around the house. So, this all happened in my mid-20s. I was working from home at the time. My job luckily allowed for that during the pandemic. It was on one late August evening. I was working late one night at my home office, the soft glow of my desk lamp casting shadows. It was this night that I first noticed the figure in the hallway. A silent reflection of what looked like myself, dressed exactly as I was. The initial shock gave way to a surreal silence that lingered in the room. My eyes locked onto this replica of myself, standing motionless just beyond the threshold of my workspace. I stood up, and with hesitant steps, I approached, the unease settling in as I tried to reconcile the inexplicable presence. It wasn't just a visual doppelganger. It was as if I had stumbled upon a glitch in the Matrix or something. I don't really believe in that sort of thing, but I don't really have any other way to explain it. The air in the hallway took on a charged stillness, and the encounter became a disruption in the otherwise serene night. As I approached the figure, it turned and walked down the hallway. As I turned the corner to follow it, it had disappeared. Weeks later, it was early September. I was in the grocery store doing some after-work grocery shopping. I was strolling casually through the aisles, checking off things from my checklist. Turning into an aisle, I was met with the figure standing at the end, the silent observer amidst the shelves of everyday groceries. The quiet hum of fluorescent lights became a backdrop to the silent exchange, and a chill ran down my spine as my mind tried to comprehend what I was seeing again. Once again, I tried to approach the figure. As I got about halfway towards it, it turned to the left and walked to another aisle. Once again, I tried to follow it, but my attempt proved fruitless. I ran up and down the aisles, scanning each one, seeing if I could find it again, but nothing. The rest of the month was quiet. Then, around mid-October, I was walking my dog in the park one evening. The park is usually where I go to settle my mind after a hard day's work, but it became the backdrop for the next inexplicable encounter. As I walked along the tree-lined path, there it was, the silent reflection seated on a bench, my eyes fixed on it, and it became a moment frozen in time. My dog barely reacted to it. It seemed confused that there was two of me, but it didn't growl or anything like that. If anything, it moved behind me somewhat, a slight whimper. The rustle of leaves and distant chatter became the soundtrack to this encounter. I didn't try to approach it this time. This time I chose to go the other way on the path, away from the figure. It was a long time after that I saw the figure again. I thought I'd seen the last of it. There were more encounters than that, but these were the most significant, and they stood out the most. The encounters, initially frequent and vivid, began to shift towards the end of November. The figure's gaze grew more distant, and the sightings turned into fleeting glimpses, whereas before it would appear at the end of a hallway or aisle. By this time, it was appearing in the distance, perhaps on the horizon or amongst trees. Weeks passed, and the sightings dwindled. The once semi-regular occurrence became a rare sight, and then, as abruptly as it started, the encounters stopped altogether. It was a strange couple of months. I've read some stories online, and for the most part they're one-off sightings. Has anyone else been followed by their own doppelganger for this long before? If so, please let me know. Hello watchers and listeners, thank you so much for watching. If you have a story to share, please send it to my email in the description below. This channel is mostly made up of stories sent in by viewers or people they know, or people I know. Another way to support the channel is to sign up for my Patreon, where you can watch my videos ad-free. More perks will be added once I get back from Australia in November. Also, I will be redoing my merch store when I get back, so keep an eye out for that one. Thank you all for your continuous support. And remember,
Papa loves you.